Welcome to Sovereign Souls, a special podcast sponsored by the Spirit Release Academy with your hosts, Jonno Webster and Andy Porter.
Okay, welcome to this podcast on behalf of the Spirit Release Academy. And this podcast, we've got a very interesting person that we've spent some time with called Miriam. And Miriam is going to talk to us about her experience, her family experience around the things that they experienced from a paranormal perspective, really, and also how that kind of dovetailed into Miriam's own experiences and how she ended up starting to join and walk the path of the Spirit Release Academy as a certified practitioner. So welcome to the podcast, Miriam.
Welcome, Miriam.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming here. And I think, as Andy was saying, you've got a very, very interesting journey coming into the academy because of the studies that you're doing. You know, we need to understand that, and certainly your experiences. And I think that the best thing to do is for us to be quiet, mate, and let Miriam speak, because it's quite a story.
It's a very interesting story. Yeah. Can't wait.
All right. I'll do my best to keep it as tight. There's so many more details, but of course that's a much longer podcast. So I came across Spirit Release Academy. It feels like almost by accident, or, you know, driven by destiny, if you will. And I don't say that in a widespread way about a good many things. But I feel like it's important to kind of break it down how this happened, because it's cool. It's mystical. It's interesting. So I'm a psychology student and a certified hypnotherapist. I have a family member, very dear, very close, very important in my life, who ended up after COVID with an addiction, a really severe addiction to methamphetamine. And what happened with that was there was a period of time when the rock hit bottom and we were finally able to get her into a rehab facility for about a month long. And while she's in rehab, I'm of course just doing my studies. And once she gets out, surprisingly, she went right back to the house, which we'll call the trap house, because it's like the den of the drug users. Okay. And that was really terrifying to us as a family member. We were afraid she was going to relapse. We weren't really sure. Her behavior was off in a really big way, yet she claimed to not be using, and she was different, not the same as she was on the substance. So we got her out of there once again, and was talking to her about hypnosis. Wanted to take her into hypnosis, see if we could get her to a place where she's contacting higher self or going through some things, and really just start the work, right? Start the process. And she started saying some really interesting things, which red flagged me. I was not trained to deal with attachments, but I had heard of them. I had been instructed that this is a possibility. This does occur. Here's a bunch of books to read. But it's not instructed. It's not something that's taught in your standard clinical hypnotherapy, or even in past life regression training. It's something that we are told, if it ever occurs or something pops up, then you go to this guy named Andy in the UK. And that's what you do. And nothing is really said beyond it. My teacher gave me some instructions on books I could read about it. I was super fascinated, really kind of curious about it. So when my sister started, or my family member, my sister started showing some symptoms of having attachments. She started saying she thinks she's dead. She started knowing where things were in that house that she shouldn't know where they were. Historical things. She would turn to the guy and say, I miss you when you were a baby, which obviously she would have no knowledge of that. So I was getting some red flags, and I was like, this is very, very weird speak. And I'm going to just maybe try to do some hypnosis with her. But I started studying some of Vita Fiore's work, trying to get a mental picture of how I could deal with this if I stumbled across it in hypnosis, because I was not trained to handle this. You are not trained to handle this, and you very well may end up just floundering. So I did a little bit of study. I got her to a place where we could do the session, and she wanted to go pick up headphones for it. On her way to pick up headphones, she reported that the walk that she was on, that she was seeing a child, a visual hallucination of some sort, And again, she's still sober at this point. We know for a fact she's still sober. But she was saying she sees this dirty child on the side of the road. And it's like, there it is again. And there it is again. So she's telling me this as she's walking to buy headphones. And I'm like, this is really weird. I know where you're at. That's a very clean cut area. That's unusual. So I started worrying about things getting more complicated. And I was made aware that when you try to do a session with hypnosis, oftentimes these things will create problems. So you cannot do that session. And that's exactly what happened here. The phone line disconnected. I found out later that she had a complete panic attack, freaked out. And she's not prone to those in any which way, shape, or form. It was very unusual. In fact, she did not know what it was. She just had an attack. And I started to really realize that everything was lining up with her having these attachments. She ended up leaving the safe situation to go run back to the trap house and didn't hear from her. So I'm sitting here as a loved one and not really sure what to do next. That was all I knew that I could do. And I felt really helpless. And I felt like I needed training. I felt like I was in over my head. And I was just sitting there doing my studies. And all of a sudden a name pops into my head, Dr. Terrence Palmer. So I write it down on a piece of paper. And I'm just like, okay, I'll look that up later when I have a free moment. And I did so, ended up on his website. And I'm like reading around. I'm like, I didn't know that he had passed. I didn't know anything like that. And I see you guys' pictures. You guys, Andy and Jonno down at the bottom. And sure enough, there it said Spirit Release Academy. Because in my heart, I felt like I needed training. I needed support. I was in over my, I didn't know what I was doing. And before you know it, as if almost in trance, I'm on you guys' page, not reading a thing, filling out the application. I remember writing the part in the middle, but it was so automatic of doing this thing. And I didn't know what I was really doing. And I'm in the middle of a semester, so I filled it out. And I told my mom about it because I was like, hey, there's this thing, because we had discussed it, right? She's very Christian, and but she does understand that there are dark forces, right? She does get it. It's a little bit, I toned it to be in her perspective. I spoke to her in that way, and she understood, and she was with me on it. And I love that support. It's super important to me in this moment. And so I just told her, I was like, I put in this application for this thing. We both gave a giggle, and then the approval came back. You guys accepted me. And I looked down, and I knew I didn't have, as a student, I have no disposable income. There's not a whole lot of currency floating around our family. So the idea of being able to, handle the cost was like, there's no possible way. So when I got the approval, I was like, well, you know what, Spirit, if you want me to do this, if this is what I'm supposed to do, make the money show up. You know what I mean? And I laughed, and I just kind of put it off, right? Not much I could do. Your hands are tied. It is what it is. But by the end of that day, and this is the crazy part, by the end of that day, the money was in my account. The money, full payment, paid in full, was in my account. And it came through in this really magical way. Of course, I told my mom about it, and my mom called me. She was kind of unsettled, if you will, because this is not something she's used to. And she said, and I told her that I put it up there, and I said, make the money happen. And she said that another one of my relatives who had no information about the situation whatsoever, had turned to her and said, if Miriam needs money to help, take it from this account, give it to her. And then has no more memory of it because, they're older, and that's pretty common. Spontaneously. My mom's freaked out. She was freaked out. She was like, I don't know. Here it is. I'm just going to go. I need to chill. I paid it. I started the class. And in the class, very awesome class. I'm not really in the know on a lot of these things. I'm not super experienced. I'm not, I don't come from like a Reiki background or real energy work background. I am a psychology person. It's very structural and also subconscious, very much more related to the conscious aspects. And going through, I'm realizing what it is that's happening, what it is that we're doing. And I'm looking at you guys, and I'm looking at the students, everybody called you guys like spiritual heavy hitters. I'm like, these guys, like, I feel so like a fish out of water. I'm such an odd character for this group, but I knew this was where I was supposed to be. The undeniable amount of this is where I was supposed to be. So, by the end of it, I finally decided my sister had kind of dropped off when she went back to that house. It became just, everybody was a bit stalemate with her. I wanted to talk to her a little bit to ensure she was still sober. I did have an opportunity to do that. So I believe it was our final day, I put my sister's name in because I was sure that she was not using, that it was just something else causing this. And she got cleared not once but twice, and I believe that was divine. I believe that was a divine intention. The paperwork, which I got all the recordings and everything, they matched up so perfectly too. They weren't really like overlapping. It was really interesting how perfect it was. After that, we didn't hear from her. All we knew is that we could track her little dot on the iPhone thing, and that she had left that house and started driving. And the very next day, she just takes off, leaves the house, drives all the way up to Utah to go try to get her daughter, or try to be with her daughter for a little while, who had been removed. And then she's just off somewhere else. We hadn't talked to her for days. My mom ended up speaking with her, and she said that she was so positive and she was so light, and she just felt that now was a time for her to just remain quiet, just to be quiet, which was interesting because the guide from Spirit said exactly that. Now, she had no report. She felt that was what she was supposed to do, as if she received this whole message somehow of what was found in her report. She just knew. And there was a tremendous amount of stuff on her. Black magic was significant as well. A lot of things were removed. And I am proud to say, in every which way, that she is 100% sober. She is still sober. And what has it been now? Like less than about 6 months. Maybe something like that. March, April, May, something like that. And it's just so incredible. And for me, coming into this with my psychologist mind, and I'm looking at it from this perspective of, imagine if others knew that are in treatment, that are going through recovery, how important it is to make sure that they are sovereign as they decide to step into a new path. It's fundamental. That first year, people think, the regular people think that when you kick a drug habit, especially a very serious drug habit, you just go through the withdrawal and then you're on the other side. But that's not it. That's not it at all. That entire first year is fighting against what is to become your stability. It's fighting against the urges. It's fighting against the habitual side of it. So if a person decides to go through recovery, that process does take about a year, and they have to continuously choose to not return to it and be really honest with themselves. And that's hard. It's hard when you look in the mirror and your body's changing. You're trying to be sober, but there's all these reasons why you should go back to that. Oh, I like the way I looked when I was skinny. I was excitable. Like I had more friends. I partied more. All the reasons, all these good reasons why people ended up there in the first place. You have to fight against all of those and accept yourself. It's very hard to do, but it's super important. So this work has kind of, Hannah specifically, or my sister specifically, as patient zero for me, has shown me what this can do for someone who is coming to the other side of an addiction. And addiction is a really big problem for us in society today. It's a massive issue. And I think that this work needs to be researched. When you come at something, and a phenomenon, a scientific mind comes across a phenomenon, something unexplained, we look at it as an opportunity to research. We look at it as something that is researchable, and you can't ignore treatment that works. You can, and this is something that seems, and of course, Hannah's not the only case, right? I have had a variety of different other examples. It seems like it's coming out from every single one kind of is a phenomenal story. One girl was struggling to walk. She told me she was going to buy an electric wheelchair. She's just done walking and it just hurts too much. Did the clearing. And she told me the very next day, she walked 5 miles and her feet didn't hurt. Now we found parasites. We found parasites in her feet and those were removed. All right. And I mean, it's just, wow. Wow. That's amazing. This is just so incredibly amazing that it just works on all these different levels. One of the things that makes it a little bit difficult to research is that the benefits are hard to measure because they're so diverse. They're so interesting. They're different for everyone. And I think that's one of the hard parts that you guys have with explaining what this does is it does so much and it's not like it does exactly this or it does exactly that. It's really, really like it's very vast, the possibilities. One guy that I cleared, he became super abundant. All of a sudden, he's like, I just made $5,000. He's in sales. That energy, having sovereign energy, when you reapproach your sales position, makes a big difference. This happened to 2 guys that were in sales that we'd cleared. And I thought that was really incredible. I was like, wow. So all of a sudden, like these sales guys are like really benefiting. I was like, because your energy is trustworthy. It's good energy and that matters. So it's like there's even a business side to it and all of these different components. And I love seeing it for people. I love learning about what it can do. So it needs to be researched. And for me, since I'm at the point where pushing towards my PhD, I knew that I wanted to do something with a different type of therapeutic method. And I was looking towards hypnosis. But, you know, even my instructor said, just do hypnosis. And I was like, no, there's a clinical part here. There's a research part here that needs to be, that is still calling to me. And I discovered this, obviously, you've spoken to me about Dr. Palmer's work and I get it. I get what he was doing. How could you ignore this? You know, we need to know more, enough to be dangerous. We need to know as much as we possibly can. So how can we take the research forward, carry it forward? We know that it's happening. We have all of the work that he's done. Wonderful work, perfect work to start with. And now it's time to take it to the next step forward, because the way that people are changing, the way that people are, I see them as evolving. I see the gifts that are coming online in people as possibly, this is just my theory, a product of human adaptation, a product of human evolution. And the more we start to realize that a lot of our issues that we've had can be solved by different types of healers finding new routes, uncommon treatment methodologies, and we need to explore these things. And with SRA, if I was to develop a treatment plan for someone, which normal, you know, by the book psychology is going to say treatment plan, we'll do meds, we'll do, you know, mindfulness training, we'll do cognitive behavioral. That doesn't suit a lot of people. And I recognize that in talking with a lot of people. That doesn't really suit them. It's very behavioral, doesn't really acknowledge the conscious mind. Hypnosis acknowledges the conscious mind. But what happens when you're trying to treat someone in either of those methodologies and really all of these attachments are coming in and preventing that work from happening? You are wasting your time. So if you take SRA and you first clear the individual, you get rid of all of the external problems, then you can work on the structure of the individual, the deeper stuff, the subconscious stuff. You can go on those adventures, those journeys. And then also I do feel like there's room for the cognitive behavioral stuff. I think that these 3 branches working together would be a more effective treatment plan, because sometimes the person is willing to do the work. Sometimes the individual can do it themselves and should do it themselves. And that's where something like hypnosis is wonderful or therapy is wonderful. The person needs to show up and decide to do that. But when a person is in a deep depression, is not able to do it for themselves, oftentimes, we would apply a pill or some sort of pharmacology for that individual to help them do it for them. Do it for them because they're not capable of really getting there. But instead of doing the pharmacology route, which is just take the pill, SRA can do it for you. And that's the beautiful thing about the remote aspect of what we're doing on a person's behalf, because in that moment, if they are weighted down from all of this stuff, they're going to have a very difficult time showing up to do therapeutic work, showing up to get anything done, showing up for themselves and their family. And a lot of people are in that state, which is why they prefer the pill than the therapy, because the pill does it for them, to some extent, with all these problems attached to that most of the time, side effects. So there's kind of two routes, and one of them has to do with states. If a person is in a depressed state, not a permanent condition, states and traits, and I'm getting a little psychological on you guys here, but there's a difference between states and traits. And a trait is something that is sovereign to the human. This is something that's built into them. You may have trait narcissism, for example. Doing a clearing on a person with narcissistic traits is not going to remove those narcissistic traits. That is ingrained in their being. That is part of who they are. If they want to change traits, it needs to be done by them. But states, on the other hand, suicidality, these severe states of delusion, even deep depression, these are states, or anxiety, panic attacks, things of that nature, stress even. Those are all states. Those are things that can be helped with these things. Of course, there's a lot of underlying, but if you clear that out and you improve their state, then they can work on the trait if they want to. So that's kind of the thing that I've kind of rolled around with in looking at the different parts of this is, what is it changing in an individual? It does affect their state. It's getting a lot of these underlying work done. When it comes to like even stuff we work on in past lives, doing a ton of the work. SRA and just having a clearing is doing a ton of the work. But if a person still needs to do the regular therapeutic stuff themselves, and that's where the other models come in. So these three models, they're interlaced. They're working together. They're not to say that one is superior to the other, because we don't want people who aren't doing any kind of inner work to just be getting clearings and clearings and clearings, and just to kind of resetting them. We want the whole picture to be considered in a person. And that is why we have to research this. That is why we have to look further in and test some things out and know more about what it does and know more about how we get attachments and how they come in, so we know how to prevent them, all the various forms of that. So yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much what I can say about it for now, until we do more research.
This podcast is sponsored by the Spirit Release Academy. To learn more information about the Academy and their ongoing courses, please visit spiritreleaseacademy.com.